The history of late Republican Rome is filled with intrigue, rebellion, and dramatic clashes that reshaped a mighty empire. In today's exploration, we step into an era marked by power struggles between the aristocratic Senate, the ambitious equestrians, and the restless Italian allies. The stage is set with the trial of Rutilius Rufus, a man of honor, accused of extortion, a charge that serves as a stark reminder of how political pressures could silence the voices of principle. Against this backdrop emerges the charismatic tribune Marcus Livius Drusus, whose bold proposals and tragic fate would signal a seismic shift in Roman politics. This period isn't just a tale of legal battles and legislative reforms. It's an epic narrative where loyalty, ambition, and betrayal all intertwine. The political climate was volatile. Senators and equestrians occasionally found common ground against the rising terrorism of popular demagogues, yet their unity was fragile. Drusus, hailing from a storied senatorial family, dared to challenge this status quo by proposing far-reaching reforms. His ideas aimed to democratize justice, not only by expanding the Senate with influential equestrians, but by overhauling the judicial system to root out corruption and ensure fair governance. His legislative agenda also touched on critical social issues, such as founding new colonies and making staple foods more affordable for Rome's citizens. However, change is never welcomed without resistance. Drusus's proposals, which bundled together several controversial reforms, set off alarm bells among Rome's ruling elite. His struggle would soon merge with another dramatic chapter, the Italian or Marsic War and the subsequent First Mithridatic War, conflicts that not only altered Rome's borders, but transformed its internal structure. Today's journey unveils these interconnected events in a narrative that is as complex as it is captivating, with battles, betrayals, and bold reforms lighting up the pages of history. In the politically charged corridors of Rome circa 91 BC, the tribunate of Marcus Livius Drusus became a flashpoint for transformative ideas. The Roman Senate, long steeped in tradition and power, found itself increasingly at odds with the rising influence of the equestrian class. This friction was fueled further by popular demagogues who championed the cause of the common people, thereby destabilizing long-held power structures. It was in this context that the tragic trial of Rutilius Rufus in 93 BC unfolded. Rufus had served honorably as quaestor under Mucius Scaevola, a governor known for his strict measures against corruption in Asia. Ironically, instead of being celebrated for his integrity, Rufus was ensnared in a trumped-up charge of extortion, a politically motivated maneuver designed to punish those who dared to enforce justice in the provinces. His conviction, while legally sealed, resonated as a warning for any officer who might challenge the exploitative practices of the Roman financiers and tax collectors. Marcus Livius Drusus, endowed with a sharp mind and a forward-thinking vision, seized upon these events to propose a series of sweeping reforms. His legislative program sought to expand the Senate by incorporating 300 distinguished equestrians, thereby raising the total number of senators to 600. This bold initiative aimed to create a more balanced and equitable representation of Rome's elite. Drusus also proposed reforming the juries that determined legal outcomes, advocating for a system where jurors would be chosen equally from the new Senate and the remaining equestrians. His vision extended to holding equestrian jurors strictly accountable, making them liable for any bribery they accepted, a move designed to restore public trust in the judicial system. In addition to legal reforms, Drusus introduced legislation to found new colonies, stepping stones for Rome's expanding influence, and to secure cheaper grain supplies for the urban populace, addressing the basic needs of Rome's common citizens. Yet his comprehensive reform package, which even contained a bold proposal to enfranchise the Italian allies by granting them Roman citizenship, stirred fierce opposition. The Senate and even some members of the equestrian order decried the bundling of multiple distinct reforms into one sweeping, unconstitutional measure. As tensions escalated, Drusus's efforts to introduce his franchise bill a second time met a tragic end. In an act shrouded in mystery and political treachery, he was assassinated, an event seen by many as the definitive end of the era of peaceful civilian reform. His death not only marked the loss of a visionary reformer, but also foreshadowed the subsequent reliance on military might over legal procedures in Roman political life. The assassination of Marcus Livius Drusus ignited a spark that soon set the Italian peninsula ablaze. The Italian allies, who had long felt marginalized and exploited by Rome despite their vital contributions to its military might, now rallied around Drusus' reformist legacy. They organized themselves into a formidable confederacy, complete with its own senate, composed of 500 members and an executive branch led by 2 consuls and a cadre of 12 praetors. At the heart of the confederacy was Corfinium, renamed Italia, a bold symbolic act that declared their independence and renewed identity. Federal coinage was minted to promote a shared economic identity, signaling the emergence of a united Italian force, determined to secure its rights. This alliance, composed of diverse groups including the warlike Marsi, a people whose name would eventually lend itself to the Marsic War, and other central and southern Italian tribes, boasted military skills honed by years of service in the Roman legions. Their battlefield tactics, discipline, and organization were no less refined than those of the Roman armies they had once aided. Yet, a critical flaw persisted. While the martial spirit of the Italians burned brightly, key Latin colonies and the influential Greek cities in southern Italy remained loyal to Rome. This disunity ensured that, despite the burgeoning power of the Confederacy, the Italian allies were largely isolated from the vital coastal regions and naval supremacy that Rome enjoyed. As the war broke out in 90 BC, the Italian allies swiftly set their plans in motion. In a daring offensive, they attempted to surge northward into Etruria and southward into Campania. Their aim was clear: to establish control over territories and force Rome to recognize their grievances. In Campania, their advance was marked by remarkable successes. They penetrated well into the heartland and even reached the coast, a strategic achievement that threatened Rome's supply lines. Meanwhile, Rome, determined to preempt the uprising, launched counteroffensives by invading territories held by the rebels. Although the first year of conflict saw heavy losses for the Romans, punctuated by a series of tactical disasters arising from the unexpected ferocity of the Italian forces, the resilience of Rome's military machine soon began to turn the tide. Commanders like Marius emerged, offering experience and tactical ingenuity that helped stabilize the front lines. Rome's response was not confined solely to military maneuvers. In a clever mix of diplomacy and legal engineering, the Roman Senate passed the Julian Law. This measure granted Roman citizenship to those allies who had not joined the revolt, as well as to those who defected and laid down their arms, thereby sowing seeds of division within the Confederacy. The promise of citizenship, long a coveted prize, enticed several communities to abandon the rebel cause. The Latin colonies and various Greek allies found renewed loyalty to Rome under these reforms, further isolating the Confederate forces. As the conflict wore on into the following year, decisive Roman victories began to emerge. The consul Pompeius secured the north, while the legate Sulla dismantled rebel strongholds in the south. Subsequent franchise laws, including the Lex Plautia Papiria and the Pompeian Law, were introduced to streamline the incorporation of Italian communities into the Roman state. These laws reduced the rebel ranks by offering Roman citizenship to federate citizens who claimed it within a set time frame. Ultimately, by 88 BC, the flames of rebellion began to subside. The organized resistance of the Italian allies dissolved, and the mosaic of Italian peoples, spanning diverse cultures and traditions, slowly integrated into the larger Latin nation. Local self-governing municipalities were established across the peninsula, each retaining fragments of its ancestral customs while gradually adopting the uniform administrative structures of Rome. In these turbulent years, the Italian or Marsic War proved to be a crucible of change, ultimately redefining Roman citizenship and sowing the seeds for a unified Italy that would echo through subsequent generations. While the internal struggles in Italy raged on, a new external challenge began to stir in the eastern Mediterranean. Mithridates VI, Eupator, the ambitious and enigmatic king of Pontus, had emerged as a formidable force, intent on challenging Rome's supremacy in Asia Minor. Born into a dynasty with roots steeped in Hellenistic tradition, Mithridates' rise began with his accession to the throne in northern Cappadocia. His early years were marked by an unyielding ambition to expand his territory, and he rapidly established his kingdom along the southern shores of the Black Sea. With his colorful background and a flair for dramatic gestures, Mithridates envisioned a realm that could rival the might of Rome. His ambitions soon drove him into direct confrontation with Roman authority. In 91 BC, Mithridates occupied Bithynia, a Roman province wedged between Pontus and Asia. Although he later capitulated to Roman demands under pressure, the seeds of defiance had already been sown. When Rome became embroiled in conflicts back home with the Italian allies, Mithridates saw an opportune moment to assert himself. In 89 BC, he launched a well-coordinated campaign against the Roman province of Asia. Armed with a trained, battle-hardened army and a formidable fleet of around 300 ships, he advanced with speed and precision, leaving little room for Roman retaliation. Local levies and provincial forces fell before his might, and Mithridates rapidly secured control of Bithynia. The indigenous populace, long suffering under the heavy hand of Roman taxation and exploitation by moneyed financiers, greeted his arrival with hope and enthusiasm. On a fateful set date in 88 BC, thousands of provincials, fueled by pent-up resentment, participated in a mass uprising that culminated in a brutal massacre of approximately 80,000 Romans and Italians. This shocking act bound the local communities irrevocably to Mithridates' cause and set the stage for an extended conflict. The war quickly spread into Greece, where political discord festered and traditional power dynamics were ripe for disruption. In Athens, disenchanted with an oligarchic government perceived as too closely aligned with Rome, the citizens seized control and, in an act of bold defiance, willingly placed themselves under Mithridates' protection. On his march to secure Athens, one of Mithridates' trusted generals, Archelaus, struck a devastating blow by exterminating the Italian colony at Delos, a major hub of commerce and finance. This ruthless action reverberated across the region. Meanwhile, Rome found itself divided. Sulla, elected consul and assigned command in the east, was entangled in a bitter power struggle with the aging yet still influential Marius, whose ambitions extended even into foreign campaigns. As infighting among the Marian faction erupted, with tribune Publius Sulpicius Rufus rallying a bodyguard of equestrians and enforcing draconian measures, Sulla's forces, bolstered by disillusionment with corrupt practices, surged forward in decisive battles at Chaeronea and Orchomenus. These confrontations displayed the tactical discipline of the Roman legions even in the face of formidable adversaries. As the military campaigns unfolded, Mithridates' initial advantage began to wane. His fleet, once a dominant force in the Aegean, faced setbacks at the hands of Lucius Lucullus, Sulla's quaestor, who rallied Rome's eastern allies to reclaim control of the sea. Gradually, even key Greek cities started distancing themselves from Mithridates as his excessive demands and plunder eroded their support. Finally, in 85 BC, negotiations bore fruit. Under severe pressure, Mithridates was forced to agree to peace terms that involved surrendering important territories, paying an enormous indemnity in talents, and ceding a significant portion of his once mighty fleet. Although his kingdom of Pontus remained intact, his position in Asia was irrevocably weakened. Even as Sulla consolidated his gains and imposed harsh financial burdens on rebellious communities, the political and social landscapes of Asia Minor and Greece would never be the same. The war left behind a trail of devastation and a legacy of change that would resonate across the centuries. Reflecting on these tumultuous episodes in Roman history, one is struck by the power of transformation, ignited by conflict and reform. The trial of Rutilius Rufus and the ambitious legislative vision of Marcus Livius Drusus showcased the noble yet perilous attempts to renew the Republic from within. In the explosive crucible of the Italian or Marsic War, rebellious alliances claimed their rights and reshaped the concept of Roman citizenship, setting the stage for a more inclusive, albeit hard-won nation. Finally, the First Mithridatic War, with its breathtaking military maneuvers and dramatic battles, reminded us that ambition and external challenge can upend even the greatest of empires. Together, these events not only redefined the boundaries of Roman power, but also signaled the decline of peaceful reform in favor of militaristic resolve. Their enduring legacy lies in the fact that Rome, continually shaped by the forces of internal dissent and external conquest, eventually evolved into a state where citizenship, military might, and political ambition became inseparably intertwined. The narrative of this era inspires us to consider the delicate balance between reform and rebellion, a timeless lesson that echoes into modern times.